20-flower Jia trembled, cold sweat pouring down his face. Grandmaster, please save me. There is also a method to save you. This doll became a medium because it carries resentment. I smiled slightly and said mysteriously, as long as you do your best to make it up to the Tang family, and then use your own blood to nourish the doll for 49 days, when the doll is satisfied, it will dissipate its resentment and be liberated. Thank you, Grandmaster. 20-flower Jia was so grateful that he bowed his head 3 times and then hung up. In the live stream room, everyone was discussing excitedly. I'm telling the truth, the streamer shouldn't have saved him, just let him die. Although I believe in Buddhism, this time I agree with the person above. I'm an old fan of the host. I feel like there's something strange about her smile this time. I've been discovered. I quickly lowered my head, hiding the cruelty in my eyes. 49 days later, a news about 20-flower Jia appeared under my topic. 20-flower Jia was on the news of ghosts. He died suddenly at home. His body was just an empty shell, without any organs or flesh or blood. There was another body hidden under his bed, who had died not long ago. Talented netizens dug up the events surrounding 20-flower Jia. After that live stream, in order to survive, he immediately transferred all his assets to Tang Meng's name, and every day he went to the Tang family's house to kneel for a day, regardless of rain or shine, trying to flatter the Tang family even though they didn't care much. In addition to feeding the doll with blood every day, he also bought rosary beads and a statue of Guanyin, fasted and chanted Buddha's name, looking like he had attained enlightenment. But when the 49th day was approaching, and he was getting older, he was truly frightened. In order to please the doll, 20-flower Jia went to find the thug who had humiliated Tang Ting in the past. He originally intended to bring that guy to the doll to apologize, but for some reason an argument broke out, and in a fit of fear, 20-flower Jia angrily killed that thug and hid the body at home. He thought he had done everything, but on the 49th day, his old body suddenly broke down without any signs, and when he died, he still couldn't please the doll. As for my role in this matter, it was nothing more than adding fuel to the fire. The method of breaking the spell that I showed to the 20-flowery ancestors was real, because I was sure that no matter what he did, the doll's resentment would not dissipate, and the Tang family would not forgive him. Furthermore, breaking the spell did not require the fresh blood of the 20-flowery ancestors. I deliberately led him to continuously draw blood, so that his flesh and blood would forever nourish the Tang family's future fortune. That was what he owed them. When the 20-flowery ancestors died, Tang Ting would be reborn. As for the 20-flowery ancestors, there would forever be no afterlife. The so-called compensation was nothing more than a lie created by humans to comfort themselves. Mistakes had already been made. Could he turn back time and let that bullied and trampled girl go? He lost all his wealth. He knelt down 3 times and kowtowed 9 times. He drained all his blood, not because of regret or guilt, but simply because he wanted to save his own life. That lie did not deserve the Tang family's forgiveness. I am not a Taoist priest, nor a saint. I am just an evil spirit that climbed up from the underworld. I am not a good person. I do things as I please, without caring about morality. Expecting me to save him is truly a vain dream. After the incident with the doll and the 20-flowery years went viral, the temperature of my 3rd live stream skyrocketed. This time, I chose to connect with a fan whose ID was Jia Ming. When the video opened, a small couple was leaning against each other. The girl took the initiative to introduce herself. Hello host, my name is Du Jia, my fiancé is Su Si Ming, we will be getting married next month. The two of them looked at each other sweetly, their faces filled with expectant smiles. The live stream room couldn't sit still. This is a fortune-telling live stream, not a place for you to spread dog food. Love shows will die quickly. If there's nothing going on, why would you go to fortune-telling? The singles group suffered a fatal blow. Why do other people have girlfriends? Congratulations, what do you want to see? I asked indifferently. Du Jia pursed her lips, her smile gradually disappeared, revealing a worried look. Su Siming clapped Du Jia's hand and said, "Master, our wedding house seems to be haunted. Ever since we started renovating the house, strange things have been happening one after another. First, a construction worker had his leg broken by a falling steel bar, then a vase broke for no reason, and then there was the constant crying of a grown man in the house." Su Siming scratched his head. "Jia Jia and I were tortured by this series of events to the point of having a nervous breakdown. Grandmaster, you must help us. In the past half year, have any of your relatives passed away?" I asked. Upon hearing this, both of their faces froze at the same time. They looked at each other. Su Siming's face turned pale as he said, 3 months ago, my younger brother, Su Xiqiang, died in a car accident. Although they said that their younger brother died, there was no trace of sadness on Su Siming's and Du Jia's faces. Even when mentioning the name, Su Xiqiang, they seemed to be avoiding something. Du Jia's face was filled with hatred, while Su Siming's expression was unfathomable, as if mentioning this name was humiliating. I observed their expressions and asked, "Have you two had any strange dreams recently?" Su Siming and Du Jia shook their heads in unison. "What does the Grandmaster mean is that the ghost that caused trouble in the wedding house is Su Xiqiang?" When he saw me nod in confirmation, Du Jia gritted his teeth and cursed, "Su Xiqiang, this beast, he was a piece of trash when he was alive, and he can't rest in peace even when he's dead. I've already imagined a play about 2 brothers fighting over a girl. Digging melons in the news garden, Yan Zhen, is this scene what you expected?" I glanced at the lively comments. "You have to clarify the matter related to Su Xiqiang before I can help." Du Jia bit her lips tightly. Su Siming hugged her, comforting her as he spoke. "Su Xiqiang is my twin brother. He has super male syndrome **. Super male syndrome, also known as XYY syndrome, is a genetic disorder that occurs when males have an extra Y chromosome, instead of just the normal XY pair. Some previous studies have suggested that males with XYY syndrome are more prone to aggression or antisocial behavior. He was a bad kid since he was young. He intentionally poured boiling water on the neighbor's child's face, causing extensive burns. After he was released from the reformatory, he worried us every day, smoking, drinking, hanging out with bad people in society. He was no match for anyone in fights, and was always brutal. What's even worse is that after growing up, Su Xiqiang often impersonated me to approach my friends and colleagues, even Du Jia. He didn't spare her. Su Siming couldn't speak anymore. He covered his face, and shouted angrily. Du Jia gritted his teeth, his voice choked as he uttered a sentence. "I wanted to keep my virginity until the wedding day, but Su Xiqiang impersonated Siming to trick me into going to a hotel and raping me. After that time, I had a hemorrhage. The doctor said that I might not have children in this life." Du Jia trembled. Su Siming hugged her tightly, gently comforting her. "It's okay, Jia Jia, I'm here. Su Xiqiang, that evil spirit is dead. God couldn't bear it and took his life. No one can harm us anymore. We will live happily together for the rest of our lives. The God of love has fallen. Don't kill me with the knife of love, or I'll cry for you to see. It turns out there are still good men in the world. I have hope for love again. Knowing that it's super male syndrome, you still don't control it, and let it out to harm others? This family is really too easy going. Help us catch that ghost Su Xiqiang." Su Siming pleaded. I stared at Su Siming for a long time. The ghost in the wedding house cannot be underestimated, it cannot be delayed. Now follow the picture I sent, rearrange the feng shui of the house, remember to hurry, otherwise the consequences will be unpredictable. Leave now. Su Siming immediately accepted the picture I sent and quickly went to deal with it. I paused for 5 minutes, calculated the time when Su Siming had completely left, slowly turned to look at Du Jia, and calmly said, "You didn't tell the truth just now." Du Jia's face was pale, and his eyes flashed with surprise. I tapped the table rhythmically. "Now that Su Siming has been tricked by me, he won't be coming back for a while. you can rest assured. You don't need to be afraid, I will protect you. Master, actually I've been hiding something. Du Jia stammered. Actually, in the past period of time, that ghost kept appearing in my dreams. He didn't say anything, just looked at me with eyes full of pain and then shed tears. I hated myself for being weak, even though I knew he was a devil, and deserved to die, but I still couldn't bear to see his face exactly like Siming. Master, I don't know if I'm possessed, but since the engagement, I feel like Siming has changed. Even though he's still as gentle as before, the feeling I get is completely different, as if that gentleness is just an act. I even woke up from a nightmare once, and when I opened my eyes, I saw Siming staring at me. His eyes were like he was looking at prey. When did you two get engaged? I asked. 3 months ago, right after the news of Su Xijiang's death in the accident was confirmed. At that time, Siming held my hand and said that he could finally be with me without any burdens, and that he would take care of me for the rest of his life. The timeline matches. I nodded slightly to encourage Du Jia to let her say that crazy hypothesis herself. Du Jia gasped, her eyes filled with brokenness. My fiancé was switched. I nodded in confirmation. In that accident, the one who died was actually your fiancé, Su Siming. And the person you're about to marry now is the one who humiliated you and also the murderer who killed Su Siming, Su Xijiang. Su Xijiang has always been jealous of Su Siming's successful life. He planned the accident 3 months ago, then quietly changed all the documents and identities, and conveniently took over Siming's prestigious education, brilliant job, and her. Du Jia's forehead immediately broke out in thick sweat, his face pale as wax, tears rolling down from the corners of his eyes, falling drop by drop onto his shoulder blades. Is this a real-life weird story, both strange and a bit romantic? Oh my god, I'm getting goosebumps. The elegant man on the screen is actually a murderous devil. Kill your ex-boyfriend to make Du Jia and Su Siming's beautiful love perfect. Amidst the sudden silence, a strange sound of a door opening rang out, and as the figure in the video got closer and closer, Du Jia's body suddenly stiffened. Su Siming's face, no, it should be Su Xijiang's, appeared on the screen, his hand pressed against Du Jia's forehead. Jia, what are you talking about with the Grandmaster? Why are you sweating so much? Hearing the man's teasing and cold voice beside her ear, Du Jia clenched her fingers, trying to keep her face calm. Brother, aren't you going to the new house? Why are you back so soon? Immediately afterwards, Su Siming's big hand landed on her shoulder, causing Du Jia's pupils to constrict. The heated comments in the live stream room suddenly stopped, all the viewers held their breaths, worried about Du Jia. And I directly shouted at the screen, Su Xijiang, turn around right now. Su Xijiang turned around and raised his eyebrows. TSK, I thought you would at least pretend to be like Du Jia. I looked at him coldly. Pull your claws out of Du Jia's body right now, I won't say it again. The corners of Su Xijiang's mouth gradually froze, and cruelty was evident in his eyes. He tightened his grip, causing Du Jia to cry out in pain. I like your stubborn look. I didn't get angry and laughed, casually pulling out a chopstick, then crack it in half in front of the camera. Almost at the same time, Su Xijiang's hand that was touching Du Jia was also broken from the wrist by someone. The hand even fell to the ground, the wound covered in blood. Su Xijiang screamed in pain, holding his severed arm and collapsing to the ground. Not only was Du Jia not afraid, but her eyes also showed glee. She rushed forward and kicked Su Xijiang hard. Serves you right, why didn't that accident kill you? Su Xijiang's blood mixed with sweat, soaking his clothes. His face twisted, he jumped up, and used his other hand to strangle Du Jia's neck. What's my fault? Human nature is inherently evil, I'm just making that evil clear. Everything is mine. If it weren't for Su Siming's existence, I would have been an ordinary person, wealth, status, and you, all of these are things she owes me. Even if I die at the hands of that Taoist woman today, I'll kill you first. Let's see if her magic is faster or if my hands are faster. I'll send you down there to reunite with Su Ximing, I laughed contemptuously. Wanting to confront me? He was really too arrogant. I slammed my hand on the table. Su Xiqiang hadn't even had time to clench his fist when his soul was shaken so hard that it flew out of his body. His indignant curses really annoyed me. I waved my hand, pushing his soul down to feed the dogs in the underworld. In the eyes of the people watching the live stream, they only saw me slam my hand on the table. Then Su Xiqiang suddenly fell to the ground. They all thought he was scared to death by me. Is that it? Really? Tell me, this brat, without causing trouble with anyone else, he caused trouble with the room owner, he's done for. Room owner, are you planning to be so handsome that you'll make me die and inherit my debt? If you say he's weak, he's really vicious. If you say he's strong, he's too weak. He fell down after being scared. I'll testify, the room owner didn't lay a finger on him. Don't blame our room owner. Du Jia sat down on the ground, looking at the bloody scene before her eyes, burst into tears, then madly rushed forward to tear Su Xiqiang's body apart. At that moment, it was unclear whether she was thinking about the humiliation she had suffered or whether Su Ximing's bright future had been buried. I didn't disconnect, just quietly waited for her to cry enough and stop on her own. The police followed my live stream and came to find me. The tens of thousands of viewers in the live stream room could all testify that Su Xiqiang's death had nothing to do with Du Jia. The police didn't make things difficult for her, just asked a few procedural questions and then comforted her. Du Jia, look at the private message I just sent you. I suddenly said. As soon as I opened the message, Du Jia's eyes filled with despair immediately lit up. She raised her head to look at me, her eyes flashing with hope. Is it really possible? Okay. I nodded firmly. Du Jia's eyes immediately lit up with a fierce fire. She turned towards the screen and kept saying thank you. The live stream room was filled with question marks. Everyone was curious to know what I had sent to Du Jia. Room owner, I advise you not to treat us like outsiders, otherwise I will unfollow you in a minute. There are times when a person wandering around the internet feels extremely lonely. The room owner doesn't say what the message says. I can't sleep tonight. Oh my God, why don't you tell me what the message says? Is my life not important? Don't guess the room owner's thoughts. Who knows, maybe knowing too much isn't good for us. I smiled and turned off the live stream. The message I sent to Du Jia read, I'll come find you tomorrow, save Su Ximing. Right after Su Ximing died, he watched helplessly as the murderer took his identity and got engaged to his girlfriend. His resentment was overwhelming and would not dissipate. He stayed at that wedding house, trying every way he could think of to implicate Du Jia, hoping that she would understand the truth and escape Su Xiqiang's clutches. Su Xiqiang made me very uncomfortable, so I decided to let him see Su Ximing, whom he had tried his best to kill, still living happily with Du Jia, even happier than before. Another reason was that Su Ximing's soul emitted a golden light. Over the years, Su Ximing had continuously saved wild animals, and had even used his savings to set up a rescue camp for stray animals. After treating those animals, he helped them find new homes. As time passed, his merits were not small. Therefore, a bright future and a happy marriage were the fate that he should have been given. In Du Jia's expectant eyes, I laid out a cup of tea and a cup of coffee. Then I sat down, without even glancing, and said to the empty space above my head, Su Ximing, I know you're here. Now I'll give you a chance to choose. I held the teacup in my left hand. You can enter the body I chose for you, spend the rest of your life with Du Jia, and make up for the regrets of this life. But in your next life, you'll still be just an ordinary person in an ordinary family. Everything will depend on your own efforts. You may be an ordinary employee for the rest of your life. Of course, if you work hard, you can also become a famous businessman and create a life of wealth. I held the coffee cup in my right hand. You can also skip this life, go straight to the underworld to reincarnate. In your next life you will be the only son of a tycoon, born in luxury, a life of brilliance. After speaking, I neatly placed the 2 cups on the table. Du Jia had put on special makeup today, but her lipstick was almost completely licked off by her. She lowered her head, her fingers unconsciously fiddling with the hem of her shirt, wanting to look but not daring to look at the 2 cups on the table. I've already chosen. I pushed the empty teacup in front of Du Jia. Du Jia took a few deep breaths, then slowly raised her head. Seeing the empty teacup, she chuckled. This idiot didn't even think about choosing. I chose a young man, the president of the Song family, who was dying. He had just died not long ago, so I inserted Su Saiming's soul into him. President Song's heart rate, which had become a straight line, suddenly started beating again, and everyone was overjoyed. Thump, thump, thump. President Song's heartbeat became stronger and stronger, and his pale face gradually turned rosy. Finally, he slowly opened his deep eyes that contained many secrets. After President Song's body was confirmed to be fine, he was immediately discharged from the hospital. When he saw Du Jia holding a bouquet of flowers standing in front of the hospital door, the 2 of them looked at each other for a long time, the atmosphere filled with the feeling of a reunion after a long separation. This time, Du Jia was sure that she had not mistaken the person. Even though Su Saiming had changed bodies, she still knew that it was him. It was the person she had always thought of. The CEO of the Song family fell in love with a beautiful, ordinary girl after being reborn. This modern Cinderella love story quickly appeared on the media. Some sharp-eyed netizens immediately recognized that it was the girl from my live stream. They took screenshots and shared them under my topic, causing a series of comments. So good. Du Jia finally stepped out of the shadows. Consider it a happy ending. Seeing Du Jia find happiness, Su Saiming must be relieved. TSK, women nowadays are so pragmatic. Before they loved Su Saiming to death, now they're chasing after the CEO to flatter him. Du Jia, no opinion. Su Saiming, no opinion. CEO Tong, no opinion. The guy above, unreachable. I liked a comment, then wrote a 2-word comment, blessings. Seeing fans rushing in to comment loudly, I quickly retreated. Sigh, every time I go big on a live stream, I'll be targeted by mystical organizations. I'm not afraid, but I find it annoying. I still have to keep it a secret. So I posted a notice to temporarily stop live streaming for a short while, then went to northern Myanmar to vacation with my eldest sister Hai La. I heard it's really fun there. Maybe I'll do a special live stream from northern Myanmar. End of Part 5. Part 6, The Sea and the Wearing Soul. On the first day of teaching in the mountains, a villager climbed onto my bed. The teacher is the common wife of the entire village, so don't even think about leaving. He smiled slyly, but I laughed even louder. It had been a long time since I had killed someone, and my hands were a little itchy. The teaching students had just gotten off the bus when they were surrounded by villagers. They were freely assessing our bodies, their unfriendly gazes lingering on our faces and chests. This bud is big, it will definitely give birth to a son. This time it is much more beautiful than last time, we are so lucky. Who should we choose to kill tonight? My mouth is watering. Seeing our displeasure, the village chief smiled and tried to make peace. The people in the village are uneducated, they often say they don't know how to keep their mouths shut. Teachers, don't bother with them. We're here, everyone, let's go into the village. Under the sharp gazes of the villagers, the students hesitated and stood still, no one wanted to follow. The village chief's smile gradually stiffened, his eyes showing obvious displeasure. Before he got angry, I stood up. Hello, village chief, my name is Hai Sa. I've been walking all day, I'm exhausted, please take me to a place to rest. When they saw my face, all the villagers' eyes lit up, their mouths almost watering. The village chief immediately smiled brightly, continuously praising me. I was about to follow, when a girl from the group rushed forward and grabbed my hand. "My name is Xiaoli, let's stay with Hai Sa." With Xiaoli accompanying them, the other students also formed pairs and followed the group into the village. On the way, Xiaoli took the opportunity to talk and leaned her head on my shoulder. She whispered in an extremely low voice, "Hai Sa, this village has problems, you have to be doubly careful." I glanced at her neck. Under her collar, there was a scar. It was a mark from having fought with someone before. This Xiaoli was not simple. At night, a skinny figure easily sneaked into the small courtyard where I lived, skillfully unlocking it. Under the moonlight, thanks to his distinctive buck teeth, I recognized him as Lai Dequan, the village chief's son. I continued combing my hair, calmly looking at the man who was smiling lewdly. Lai Dequan sneered, his already lowly face now even more disgusting, his yellow teeth exposed. He rubbed his hand and touched my bed, giggling, "Beauty, why aren't you sleeping yet? Are you waiting for me?" I threw away the comb in my hand, pretending to be scared and cowering. "I'm a teacher, are you in the wrong room?" Lai Dequan said contemptuously, "Who doesn't know that the students who teach are the common wives of the entire village? Otherwise, why would a normal student be so stupid as to come to this mountainous area to teach, doing useless things? Beauty, if you serve me well tonight, I will marry you, no need to serve anyone else." Lai Dequan couldn't take it anymore. Like a male dog in heat, he rushed towards me, but didn't hear the expected cry or scream. I smiled at him, then as soon as he got close, I punched his lower jaw. It's been a long time since I've felt such satisfaction from fighting. I grabbed Lai Dequan's hair, looking into his frightened eyes. "Do you like it, kid? Tell me." Lai Dequan painfully covered his mouth, his bloody hands ran towards the door. But as soon as he touched the door, I pulled him back like I was pulling a chick. My voice was like a ghost whispering, "You're in this room and you still want to come out intact, what are you dreaming about?" Immediately after, I pulled him bit by bit and hit him against the wall, making a thump sound. The red blood was so beautiful, the miserable cry was so easy to hear. Until Lai Dequan's eyes became blurred, his face was distorted, I threw him to the ground like throwing trash, then took a shovel and hit his lower body. Just like that, they kept beating each other. Lai Dequan was completely unconscious. I used 2 fingers to grab his collar and threw him out onto the street. When I passed the next room, I glanced over. No wonder Xiaoli didn't come out to ask a question after such a loud noise. It turned out that she had sneaked out of the room at some point. In a remote village, the female students were like sheep waiting to be slaughtered. In this situation, what reason was there for her to risk going out at night? The situation was getting more and more interesting. Lai Dequan was discovered in the middle of the night, already dead. The injuries weren't enough to kill him, but he was in so much pain that he died. The village chief squatted beside Lai Dequan's body, crying hysterically. "My son! Who did this?" He wiped his face, his bloodshot eyes scanning everyone. "They stopped on me. Did you see my son tonight?" When I saw the village chief's suspicious gaze, I understood. The village chief must have known that his son was looking for me tonight. I reacted like a normal female student. First I was suspicious, then surprised, then scared to the point of wanting to cry. No, I went to bed early, I'm a weak girl who can't do anything, how could I get involved in this? The students who taught with me all spoke up to defend me. "Village chief, no matter how heartbroken you are, you can't lose your mind. Hai Sa is just a weak girl, she can't even open a bottle cap, how could she beat your son to death? Moreover, Hai Sa has no reason to harm your son, we just arrived today, we only met your son once." "That's right, the grudge is in your village, don't blame our teaching staff." I took the tissue, my face pitiful, and said, "Village chief, why don't we call the police?" "Don't call the police." Before the village chief could speak, the villagers unanimously opposed this idea. The villagers looked at each other, very opposed to the police. "Let's solve our own family matters, we won't bother the police, comrades." The village chief's gaze left me, and turned to the villagers standing behind. He said viciously, "But if I find out who harmed my son, I will make him pay with his life." Everyone was talking excitedly. I turned my head, and found that Xiaoli had been standing beside me at some point. The corners of her eyes were red, as if she had just cried. In the blink of an eye, she looked at Lai Dequan's body, and a trace of satisfaction flashed in her eyes. "Serves him right." Waiting for everyone to disperse, Xiaoli and I walked back on the road side by side. Xiaoli stammered, "Hi Sa, don't you want to know where I went last night?" Xiaoli took a deep breath and said, "I discovered a big secret in this village." Xiaoli said that many families in the village had a secret cellar. Inside were women who were chained and imprisoned. They ate pig feed, were not allowed to wear clothes, were covered in wounds, and lived in a filthy environment. Their minds were gradually losing their sanity. She secretly saw one of those women who looked exactly like the photo of Wu Tianjin of the Wu family who was kidnapped in City A. It was a pity that the young lady of the Wu family, who had been so elegant and radiant in the photo, had now been stripped of all her designer clothes. Her reputation, along with her self-respect, had been completely destroyed. No one expected that Wu Tianjin, who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, would now be locked naked in a remote village, becoming a tool to bear children for a 50-year-old bachelor. Xiaoli said that the young lady of the Wu family was now unrecognizable, her mind was in a daze, and her body was covered in scars. Thinking back on the past few years, she must have suffered a lot. Xiaoli looked straight into my eyes, her eyes shining brightly. "Hi Sa, I need an assistant to save these girls, do you agree to help?" "Why me?" I raised my eyebrows and asked. "Didn't you kill Lai Dequan?" I was slightly stunned. Through Xiaoli's determined eyes, I saw her soul emitting a pale golden light. My sister once said, "This kind of soul carries great merit." I vaguely recognized Xiaoli's identity. I turned around and left, lightly throwing back a sentence, "I'm free anyway, I can follow you to find some fun." The villagers were united like a rope. If we wanted to save the women and expose the chain of crimes behind them, we had to first break the solidarity of the villagers. I thought for a moment and said, "Tomorrow when you teach, sneak into Gu Zhen's house and release his crazy wife. I'll take care of the rest." Xiaoli asked suspiciously, "Why Gu Zhen?" I explained, "Yesterday when we got off the car, other than Lai Dequan, Gu Zhen was the most active. The way he looked at us was exactly like a wolf's when hunting. I heard that Gu Zhen's wife had been kidnapped for 10 years, and after giving birth to 3 daughters, she couldn't get pregnant again. Now he really needs a new wife. People like him are our breakthrough point." Xiaoli quickly understood, but looked at me worriedly. "Remember, you have to protect yourself well." I smiled strangely. "Don't worry, these kids only make me more excited." The next day, everyone had just finished arranging their school schedules when they heard a commotion in the village. It seemed that Xiaoli had released Gu Zhen's wife. I pretended to be suspicious, blending into the crowd, quietly observing the developments. I only saw Gu Zhen's wife, covered in a foul, dirty smell, approaching the crowd, her mouth unable to make a sound. Her tongue had been cut off. The teaching students had never witnessed such a scene before, screaming in horror and covering their eyes. The village chief frowned and shouted loudly, "Gu Zhen, quickly go home and lock up your crazy wife, you scared the hell out of all the volunteer teachers." Gu Zhen's face was ashen, he walked over and slapped his wife hard, knocking her to the ground. "You useless thing who can't even give birth to a son, only knows how to embarrass yourself. Damn it, I'm going to beat you to death today." He raised his foot to kick her in the stomach. I quickly squeezed out of the crowd. Stop! Uncle Gu, why did you hit your wife? The students also spoke in unison. That's right, domestic violence is illegal, you're committing a crime. This woman looks crazy, was she beaten to this extent? Hearing what everyone was saying, Cat Ken stopped, his squinted eyes staring at me. He licked his lips and sneered. All right, for the sake of this beautiful teacher, I'll let her off this time. I turned back and said to everyone, I'm still a little worried. How about this, I'll go with the village chief to take Cat Can and his wife back, to avoid anything happening. This sentence hit Cat Can's target, he immediately winked at the village chief. The village chief looked regretful, glanced at me, then silently nodded at him. Everyone, disperse, I'll go with Teacher Hai Sa to see how things are going, it shouldn't be anything serious. Pretty teacher, let's go quickly. Gu Zhen's eyes flashed with excitement. If the village chief hadn't stopped him, he would have rushed over and grabbed my hand. The village chief whispered a few words into his ear, but I understood clearly from the way he formed his lips, what's the rush? She belongs to you anyway today. This sentence made Gu Zhen even more excited. He nodded repeatedly, rubbing his hands while looking at me. When we got close to Gu Zhen's house, his wife went crazy and pushed me away, mumbling incoherently, trying to stop me from entering the door. Gu Zhen was about to raise his hand to slap me. You rotten woman, go back to your pigsty. What are you making trouble for? Seeing this, the village chief quickly pulled Gu Zhen's hand back and shook his head slightly. Gu Zhen cursed, grabbed the woman and threw her into the corner of the wall, then hurriedly dragged me into the yard. I lowered my head, hiding the cruel thoughts in my eyes. Sometimes, I was really grateful to my mother for giving me this weak, harmless appearance. Lure the prey into the net, then killing the animals will be much easier. As soon as he entered the yard, Gu Zhen couldn't help but push me into the house, then locked the door. The noise quickly rang out in the house, but the village chief had no intention of intervening. Instead, he sat in Gu Zhen's yard smoking, his old, cunning voice echoing in, this college girl was originally prepared for my son, but now she's giving it to you cheaply. Remember to pay me back 5,000 when you're done. After a long while, he didn't hear the screaming and crying as expected. By the time he realized something was wrong, it was too late. I kicked open the iron door, throwing the bloody Gu Zhen in front of the village chief. I smiled faintly, looked at the village chief and said, look carefully, the way Gu Zhen and your son died is exactly the same. The village chief's face turned pale, his body trembled, and the cigarette fell from his hand, clearly extremely scared. He shakily pointed at me, my son was really killed by you. You, what are you? I shook my head and said with a smile, I'm not human. Don't worry, you won't die in my hands today. You have to die in a more worthy way. But now, you need to faint for a while. I picked up a brick that was just the right size for my hand and smashed it straight into his face. 1 hit, 2 hits, this old man is quite stubborn. He finally fainted, looking like he had just gone through a life and death battle. I walked over to the woman trembling like a leaf in the corner of the wall and pushed her hair aside. She was frightened and stammered at me, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. I stuffed a piece of paper into her hand and was silent for a few seconds. I didn't know her name, nor did I want to call her Gatton's wife. After thinking for a moment, I said, Sister, just now at the gate, you pretended to be crazy and pushed me because you wanted to save me, right? Follow the route on this piece of paper, go see Shaoli, the girl who released you today, she will help you get out. The woman clenched the paper tightly, her dull eyes suddenly shining fiercely. After pretending to be crazy for so many years, she finally had a chance to return home alive, to see her relatives again. As for her 3 daughters who were strangled to death by that bastard, she would burn incense for them after escaping from this place. She bowed her head to thank me, then staggered away along the route to find Xiaoli. I walked through the chaos, fixed my hair in front of the well, tried to make myself look scared, and smeared some more blood on my body. Only then did I run into the village, crying and screaming, something bad happened. The village chief said he had to avenge his son, and then he killed Uncle Cat, sob sob. The villagers hurriedly went to Cat Can's house, carried out the cold bodies of Cat Can and the unconscious village chief, then gathered around to discuss excitedly. What exactly happened? A villager looked at me suspiciously. I cried and said, the village chief and Uncle Cat had an argument. Uncle Cat got angry and blurted out that he had killed Lai Duk Tone. The village chief's eyes turned red, and he killed Uncle Cat in the same way Lai Duk Tone had died. I was so scared. The villagers were not educated, and no matter how perceptive they were, they still looked down on women in their hearts. According to the concept accumulated over many generations, women were just things that could be beaten at will, and it was okay to kill them, because they thought that women were weak and could not do anything. Therefore, they had absolutely no idea that I, a seemingly weak and harmless woman, was behind everything, and only believed what I said. I cried pitifully, and the volunteer students hurriedly helped me wipe my tears and comforted me. The villagers looked at the unconscious village chief, all of them looking uncomfortable. Someone couldn't help but mumble, I think the village chief must have been so agitated that he went crazy. Now, if anyone mentions Lai Daquan, he will immediately suspect us. Maybe one day he will go crazy and kill all of us. The villagers glanced at the student volunteers with unusual eyes. All right, you volunteers go back first. Let us discuss how to handle the village's affairs. You just teach. Don't go out if you hear any noise. Although they found it strange, the student volunteers here didn't have any say, so they had to help me return. In the evening, Xiaoli returned home and glanced at me, signaling, the village chief was buried alive by them. The villagers' hearts have begun to melt. The next step is to find the source of the trafficking of women in this village. I calmly said, I already know who it is. Today, when they dragged out Cat Can and the village chief, the villagers all looked in the same direction without prior agreement. There's a tattooed man there, wearing a gold chain, who looks like a big shot in the village. Xiaoli continued, I noticed it too, and deliberately asked around, his name is Qian Wu, he used to be a gangster, then he turned to big business. As for what business he's in, the villagers are all silent, I guess it's probably trafficking women. No matter if it's volunteer students who were tricked into coming through online posts, or women who were sold by human traffickers, they all have to go through Qian Wu. I narrowed my eyes, the corners of my mouth curling up into a meaningful smile. This guy, I'll play with him a bit. Qian Wu has 2 sons. The eldest is Qianda, the second is Qian. Both of whom study at the school I teach at. In this village school, it is rare for any child to actually attend. Most of them help their families act as a bridge, specializing in luring volunteer teachers. And there are a few like Qianda and Qian, who treat the school as their territory, causing trouble. The bullying here is extremely serious. Not long ago, Qianda and Qian burned a 20-year-old volunteer teacher alive with a lighter. Tortured her for 3 hours. Then buried her body behind the mountain. When the body was discovered, Qian Wu used money to bribe the villagers to shut up. And so the incident was erased. Qianda and Qian also relied on their father's power, becoming more and more arrogant, becoming tyrants in the school. The teachers in charge of the 2 brothers' classes all cried out to the heavens. I tactfully took on this trouble. When I entered the classroom, all the students looked at Qianda and Qian, waiting for the 2 brothers to give orders to tease me. Qianda arrogantly put his feet on the table, loudly calling me, you, come here and take off my shoes. Qian, whistled arrogantly. The whole class burst into laughter, teasingly waiting for my reaction. I walked in front of Qianda, smiled. Are you sure? The teacher's hands are quite strong. Qianda slammed the table. You're a woman, how much strength do you have? Take off my shoes. I raised my eyebrows, that was what he said. So, under everyone's gaze, I put my hand on Qianda's ankle. I only heard a crisp, crack sound, blood flowed down along my hand. The movement that seemed to not require much force directly broke Qianda's leg bone. Qianda screamed in pain, tears gushing out, my leg. I looked down at his broken ankle, pretending to be innocent. Sorry, I didn't expect Qianda to be so weak. Qianda was in so much pain that he almost fainted, gritting his teeth and screaming without making a sound. His younger brother Qian was furious, his eyes filled with a murderous intent that was unbecoming of his age. He stood up abruptly and angrily shouted, if you dare to touch my brother, I will kill you. I looked surprised, frowning and saying, Qian, the teacher must criticize you. In such a critical situation, you thought of killing me instead of saving your brother. It seems like the relationship between you two brothers is not good, huh? Only then did Qian notice Qianda's pale face, and his voice was a little panicked. Brother, are you okay? Qianda clenched his fists, pursed his lips, and glared at his younger brother. I shrugged and said, I am a responsible teacher. Since I broke Qianda's leg, I have the obligation to take him to meet his parents. Qian, you should come with me too. After I finished speaking, I didn't let them refuse and immediately carried Qianda on my back. By the way, I wiped the blood from my hands on his shirt, looking no different from a devoted teacher. The whole class was so frightened by this scene that they were speechless, perhaps because they had never seen a teacher break a student's leg with their bare hands. Oh, right, at the classroom door, I turned around and punched a stone table. Don't go around talking nonsense about today's incident. I smiled shyly, the teacher is a girl, and she has such great strength, I'm so embarrassed. The whole class trembled, as if they had just seen a demon, no one dared to say a word. I carried Qianda out with satisfaction. Qian, with a bewildered face, occasionally checked to see if his brother was still breathing. When I reached a hill, I stopped, turned my head to look at Qian. With eyes as if looking at a dead person, Qian. That innocent teacher was buried right here by you guys, right? The way they treated that teacher, I would do the same to Qian. I stripped him naked, tied him to a tree, then lit a few matches and threw them at him. This is the first and last lesson I will teach you, learn to sympathize. In the firelight, Qian felt fear and despair for the first time. He cried and screamed angrily, but no one cared. He could only watch as the fire grew stronger and stronger. Finally, in front of the teacher's skeleton, Qian was completely engulfed by the fire. In the distance, the sunset mingled with the fire, dyeing the sky red. I stood there quietly for a while, enjoying the beautiful colors. Qianda woke up and struggled violently when he saw this. I threw him to the ground like a torn sack, then grabbed his head and hit the ground repeatedly, until his face was covered in blood and his teeth fell out. Qianda lay convulsing on the ground, groaning and writhing in pain like a dying man. He wanted to beg for his life, but he knew very well that I would never let him leave this place alive. I bent down, sat beside him, and coldly smiled and asked, "Do you feel happy to die in my hands?" He shook his head, tears and snot running down his face, looking extremely disheveled. I smiled and said, "Then why did you kill that innocent teacher?" He opened his mouth to speak, but found that even speaking was difficult. Seeing its appearance, I suddenly felt extremely comfortable. Perhaps when they were torturing that innocent teacher, they didn't think that one day someone even more cruel would treat them like that. I patted its cheek and said maliciously, "Qianda, don't worry. When you die, I will arrange for you to be a beast in your next life. Being a human in this life is really too unfair for you. In your next life, you can fly around freely." Qianda finally understood what I meant, and he screamed in panic, trying to struggle to escape. But he was already in a dead end, and every movement caused his ankles to ache. He knelt down on the ground again. Qianda's eyes were filled with fear and pleading, constantly asking me for help. I stood up, looked down at him from above, then took out a few matches, lit them, and threw them at Qianda. Until he died, I kept my face expressionless, continuing to move like a machine. This was what the vengeful spirit requested. Only when it saw these two beasts endure countless tortures and finally be burned alive did the spirit feel a little comforted. "Thank you." There was no trace of the vengeful spirit in the air, perhaps it had already reincarnated. I turned around and continued walking towards Qianwu's house step by step. When I arrived, Qianwu was drinking, his face flushed with intoxication. He hiccuped and laughed. "The beautiful teacher came at the right time. Come have a drink with me." Just one sentence from me made him unable to laugh anymore. "Brother Qian, your two sons, Qianda and Qian, have gone missing. A stranger came to school today, looking like a city person, and took them away." Qianwu sobered up immediately, jumped up and asked loudly, "What happened? Who dares to touch my son?" At that moment, as planned, Shaoli rushed into the yard with a worried face. She said, "I saw it too. That man said that the business cannot be left to Brother Qian alone, unless Brother Qian doesn't need his son anymore. Fuck. I have to see who dares to play dirty tricks with me." Qianwu hurriedly went to school. The volunteer teachers had been instructed by Shaoli in advance, and agreed to say that Qianda and Qian were kidnapped by a stranger. When the students in the class were asked, everyone stared at the broken stone table, not daring to say anything. Qianwu stamped his feet anxiously, and went out to make a phone call for help. After hanging up, he gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it, I don't know which blind guy dared to touch my son. I'll make his whole family pay with their lives." After he finished speaking, he drove towards the city. Information in the village was blocked. Qianwu would definitely have to ask his boss to find out where his son was. As long as he had someone to guide him to the front line, everything would be easier. Shaoli nodded gently at me. As long as Qianwu contacted his superiors, Shaoli's colleagues who were ambushing outside the village would follow and destroy the entire network. That's right, Shaoli was an undercover police officer. I knew that from the first time I met her. That night, Shaoli and I broke into Qianwu's house. In the basement, we heard the cries of dozens of women. They were from 17, 18 to 30 years old, some were even wearing school uniforms. It seemed like they had just been kidnapped recently. "You bastards." Shaoli couldn't help but curse under her breath. It was hard to imagine what these girls would have suffered if we hadn't come here today. In the past, Wu Tianjin was also kidnapped like this. Shaoli looked at the wrist-sized lock and frowned. "I'll go find the key, Haisa, you stay here." Bang! Before Shaoli could finish speaking, I kicked the door open. The iron lock under my foot shattered like bean dregs, not affecting anything. Shaoli and the girls inside were all surprised. My family does heavy work, so my strength is a bit too much. As I spoke, I made a commanding gesture, like a traffic cop. "What are you standing there for? Run." Shaoli quickly regained his composure and said to the girls, "Don't worry, I'm a police officer. Just follow the route I've given you, my colleagues are waiting for you outside." The girls were delighted and rushed out. The next morning, Qianwu called, saying that his boss agreed to help find his child, but first he needed to deliver the goods. When the villagers discovered the empty cellar, it was too late. What should we do now? If we don't keep a close eye on these women, Qian Wu will kill us when he comes back. I don't want to die yet, I don't have a child yet. If the village chief was still here, this definitely wouldn't have happened. Hearing the word village chief, the villagers who were chattering suddenly fell silent. No one knew who was the first to speak. It's all your fault. Wanting to kill the village chief. Now something big has happened. Someone immediately objected, you talk as if you didn't participate. I remember you even throwing a few shovels at him. Stop arguing. Think of a way to deal with Qian Wu. Someone pointed towards the school and sneered, aren't those volunteer girls already there? Just hand them over.